Okay, so Faux Paws, not your typical roots music band. Tell us, for somebody that's not familiar, how would you describe the Faux Paws?
I mean, it's tough to just...
We really just prefer you listen to it.
It's best if you just listen to it. Like, the more we say, the worse it gets. But
it's not a lot of things. But it must be something.
Must be.
But we're always just trying to describe around what it is. We've never actually found the words to describe what it, in fact, is.
Sometimes the natural world and the world of music run parallel in uncanny ways. That was Chris Miller following Andrew VanNorstrand of the group The Faux Paws from our conversation at the Earl Scruggs Music Festival in late summer 2024. The name of their group is the first clue to this analogy, a name that starts like the French expression faux pas, but instead of pas, paws, like animal paws. If the faux paws were an animal, they would surely fall into the gray areas of biological classification. The platypus comes to mind. It's a mammal, but it lays eggs. With the Faux Paws, they are an acoustic roots music band playing guitar, fiddle, mandolin, and banjo, but they add saxophone a lot, and you can hear that on their new song playing now, Bubwa, No Bad Ideas. Roots music purists could be forgiven for reflexively thinking that the group was laying an egg. Similar to how common it is to mistake coral for a plant when it's really an animal related to jellyfish, it's easy to glance at the Faux Paws and mistake them for an old-time string band or maybe a Celtic band, at least when they're playing banjo. But then out comes the sax, and we're not in Kansas anymore. So what are they exactly? We answer that question with the help of more musical specimens from their second collection titled No Bad Ideas, and conversation ranging from their experience playing contra dances, how being unmarketable is part of their DNA, to their relationship with the music of Earl Scruggs. I'm Joe Kendrick, inviting you on a musical expedition to capture the ever-elusive Faux Paws on Southern Songs and Stories. Southern Songs and Stories is a proud part of the lineup at both Public Radio WNCW and Osiris Media, the leading storyteller in music. Follow Southern Songs and Stories wherever you follow podcasts, with more at southernsongsandstories.com. You can engage with us on social media. Southern Songs and Stories is on Facebook at Southern Songs and Stories, on Instagram at South Stories, and my YouTube channel is Joe Kendrick NC. The Faux Paws are a trio that is often a quartet, with brothers Andrew and Noah VanNorstrand, joined by Chris Miller, and very often now, especially on tour, Zoe Guigeno on upright bass. Having grown up in Ithaca, New York, Andrew and Noah have ties with Jeff Claus and Judy Hyman of the Horseflies, and all three are deeply influenced by fellow Empire State band Donna the Buffalo. Banjo pioneer Jeff Mosier of Blueground Undergrass and the Mosier Brothers fame gets credit here as well, especially with Chris Miller, who added clawhammer banjo to his toolbox as a young adult, after playing saxophone beginning in grade school in Florida. The Faux Paws' gregarious approach to music, evidenced with their multi-hued melodies, danceable rhythms, and variety of styles they weave in and out of, comes as no surprise in light of the aforementioned connections alone. Add to that a small but celebrated club of saxophone players in acoustic, grassy settings, like Jeff Coffin from his time with Bela Fleck and Jeremy Saunders from his years with Acoustic Syndicate, and we start to draw a bead on the Faux Paws' native habitat. Here's Chris Miller.
I grew up listening to NCW, and I think your listeners would understand that, genres aren't really a thing that we hold in our brains when we feel music and when we're influenced by music. So I think the music that comes out for us doesn't hold those lines either.
Yeah.
Your press, I love your website. First of all, on your website, how it talks about how unmarketable you are, and I think I love how you've got the funny bio and the more like the standard bio, and you can choose between the two.
Eventually, I would love to make a choose your own adventure bio, like those old books, grade school books, and you could be like, if you want this band to be a bluegrass band, turn to page 27. Don't nobody steal that idea.
Yeah.
But you list some press quotes, which I think do a fair job of trying to capture the Faux Paws aesthetic. So in amongst those quotes that I've written down, you're described as unclassifiable, imaginative, Nickel Creek vibes. That's a good one. You got to name check somebody, right? An extravaganza of sound. And all of these are not wrong.
They get weirder from there, but let's just stop you. I mean, yeah, Nickel Creek. The first time I heard Nickel Creek, I think I was 10 years old at Merlefest, and definitely haven't looked back. And, I love them as much as I did back then, I think. So.
Yeah, I was probably about 10 or 11 at Gray Fox when I first heard Nickel Creek.
Same tour. I think we agreed. We saw them on the same tour, maybe.
Their tour.
We were not on tour.
We were not on tour
together at age 10. But the problem is that we're not Nickel Creek, and we're not trying to be. It's just something that we collectively share a love for, and a lot of other types of music too. So flattered to hear someone use that, and I think that was rather forward thinking to drop the word vibes when that review was written a few years ago, because now you can't go a day without hearing the word vibes.
Right. Well, a much more melodic band, Faux Paws, than Nickel Creek. I'll say that. You've got. That is one of your calling cards, really, is you've got strong melodies and identifiable choruses. It's there in different forms, like you say. It's going from a jazz sensibility over to Celtic and into old-time bluegrass, but it's never really at one place. It doesn't settle in one place.
Well, so there's a sort of a under the hood mechanics of our band is that we all have played for a lot of dance music, contra dancing, square dancing, swing dancing, Cajun dancing, and so the idea of music that gets people moving, that's really like that mechanic of like music that affects people in a physical way is like that's something that we do take very seriously. So the genre labels we don't take we don't spend a lot of time worrying about it, but we are quite committed to that. Like, when we're arranging a tune, we're looking for the hook, we're looking for the thing that makes people want to move, and that's like an aesthetic or like a function that we're very committed to, and you can kind of find that in most of our arrangements.
Yeah, and I appreciate you pointing out melodies, because I definitely consider myself a melody guy. I'm in team melody if you have to choose. And yeah, saxophone was my first instrument, and I think melodies have some kind of universal thing to them that can reach people, affect people on a spiritual level. And I think there's something to it on like the molecular level of how melodies are constructed and what makes a melody that magical thing, We all feel that.
Yeah, well, it's the recognition. Like, when someone recognizes it as a melody, that's what makes it a melody, and there's something to that.
Take it slow. We're doing the best we can with what we know. There's a fire on the weekend. If I go, will I see you there? Maybe we could ride together. I'll bring a bottle to share. There's a fiddle and a guitar. Lay a blanket on the ground. Watch the stars and sparks above us. Got a few friends around. Oh, way up the river in Rockingham. Gotta take it slow.
That's a bit of Rockingham by the Faux Paws from their album No Bad Ideas. Contradance is an essential element in the band's storyline, and as you will hear, all three core members have extensive experience playing for these folk dances, which date back to English, Scottish, and French dance styles originating in the 1600s. They continue in many, especially English-speaking countries today, but they continue to flourish especially in places like Western North Carolina. I asked about their experience with contradance. Here's Andrew VanNorstrand.
You've got such a vibrant scene for folk dancing in Western North Carolina. It's an incredible area for that. But yeah, that's a thing that my brother Noah and I have done for a long time. We played for many years in a band called Great Bear, and we one of our favorite gigs that we played very regularly was at Warren Wilson. They'd have a Thursday night dance called the Old Farmer's Ball, and we started playing that in probably the late aughts or something like that, and it was a wild scene. It was really, really fun. Noah and Chris continue to play dances. I don't play them anymore, but it's a great thing. It's a really powerful thing as a musician, because when you're playing for a room full of dancers, you get immediate visual feedback on your own playing. You don't have to wait to talk to someone afterwards for them to describe how their music affected them. You can see how your music is affecting them in real time, and that's just an incredible thing. And it's hard to get that in a lot of other situations.
Yeah, and the thing that's kind of unique about contradance, I think, compared to some other forms of social dance music is that everybody's doing the same thing all
Yeah.
together.
Yeah,
And when you're up on stage looking out at that, whether it's 100 people or 300, we've done dances for 600 people sometimes, and that's a powerful thing. And it feels powerful to the dancers as well to be a part of this sort of collective whole. And yeah, I know that our music is deeply influenced by that. The other thing about that I would say is I came into, when I met these guys about 15 years ago, starting to play contradance, and I had never heard of it. But what I appreciated about it is that the dancers don't really care what you call your music or what style it is. It definitely came from a variety of influences of folk dance music, from English country dance and old time and, square dance. But as long as you're kind of checking the boxes of what makes the dance work, they're happy to have an electric guitar solo or a saxophone solo or drums or whatever. It can be just a fiddle and, or it can be a 10-piece band. So
Yeah. It was a very natural fit for the way we approach making music.
Yeah, and you guys kind of grew up in that environment where you weren't being asked this question all the time. What do you call your music? Because nobody.
This is dance music, and
yeah.
if it makes you want to dance, that's the end. It's a very short conversation.
But I would add that your band, Great Bear, kind of moved the needle a little bit on what was accepted in that world. Certainly there were bands that came before, like Wild Asparagus, that sort of moved beyond the traditional, acoustic music world. But your family band sort of really kind of blew that wide open, and a lot of people have been influenced by that too. So.
Chris went on to note that in a time where short-form content dominates the media landscape, the band's new album has several songs that run well over 6 minutes long, up to almost 10 minutes for the album version of Rockingham. I asked how it came to be that they wound up with these songs being that long. Here's Andrew VanNorstrand.
Well, we just weren't done playing yet.
Oh yeah. It's sort of. I mean, it's nice to let something sort of develop and unfold in the way that it wants to.
Yeah. And
some of that is improvised solos that take their time to be played, and some of it is we really like to take songs with words, but then kind of merge them with tunes, like fiddle tunes, and sometimes that's sort of there's a verse, and then there's the tune, and then another verse, and then the tune again, and then the solo. But I wouldn't call it a jam band record. I wouldn't call us a jam band. I wouldn't call us anything. But hopefully the people that like jam band music, because it sort of shares some of those characteristics, would also like this.
I hate to break it to you, but to be marketable, you're going to have to call yourself something.
I know. Well, that's what we were hoping you would call us something. That's why we're here.
Oh, okay, that's my assignment.
That
All
is
right.
the media's assignment.
Okay.
There's one other thing I would say about that, which is just to tie back into what we were talking about earlier about dance music. Contra dances are very often 8 to 10 minutes long. Like that's common. Not to say that you can't do them shorter or longer, but that's like your target range. And so all those years of playing for dances, we sort of developed an appreciation for that energy arc, like how what your tools are and how you pace an arrangement to sort of, build in a certain way and sort of like live in this 8-minute space where you've got enough time with a song to like not have to, like you can let yourself go and sort of live in the song a little bit. You don't have to catch every single note because it'll come by again. Don't worry about it. If you're thinking about something else for a minute, there's another chorus.
Yeah, the traditional format for that music is like a 32-bar tune, which goes by in 45 seconds.
So fast.
So you're playing the tune a lot of times. But what these guys would do is sort of like take that apart and expand upon it and just sort of be like, what if we just left more space, or what if we just didn't play the tune and did this instead?
And then I think we tried to tap into some of that aesthetic with this record. We just let things take their time and lived in the music a little more
organically.
Yeah, organically, comfortably.
Just the darkness before me.
The fiddle is key to every contra dance, and I can picture sets of couples and long lines moving in rhythm to the fiddle lines from Andrew VanNorstrand in that song, Night, by the Faux Paws, which leads off their 2025 album, No Bad Ideas. Being at the Earl Scruggs Music Festival where the band played multiple sets, I had to ask about their relationship with Earl's music. Here's Andrew VanNorstrand, followed by Chris Miller.
So the very first music I ever played was kind of this, it was like an odd little mishmash of country, western, and bluegrass. It was never like strictly bluegrass, and a lot of times actually I didn't know if a song was a country song or a bluegrass song or just like a pop song that people were covering, pardon me, in a jam session. But there was a Flat and Scruggs record that was one of is the golden one. I forget what's the name of it. Golden. It's got a yellow cover. Anyway, it was my like first exposure to traditional bluegrass was Flat and Scruggs. Pardon me. And yeah, just his incredible sense of timing. I think that's the most specific thing about Earl Scruggs playing that has stuck with me is just impeccable. His just impeccable timing. Just a mind for rhythm and syncopation and moving forward, always forward. It's beautiful playing.
Yeah, I think I kind of worked backwards a little bit from. I grew up with bluegrass music around the house and family in Western North Carolina, going to Merle Fest and seeing Doc Watson and everybody there. But I kind of got into Bela Fleck and the Fleck tones through my love of jazz, and then sort of went back from there and heard. The first time I heard Earl on a recording was that Bluegrass Planet, Tales from the Acoustic Planet,
right,
Volume 2. Yeah, and he's on there, and that was one of the last recordings he did, I think, with Bela. And I got to see Bela at Merle Fest kind of, play his banjo and do tributes to him. But, there are a few giants of an instrument like Earl Scruggs. It's totally transformed the, cultural thing that we think of when we think of an instrument. Like it's completely different from before Earl to after Earl. So we've all been influenced by that.
One other thing I'd say about that is like, so we're here at a bluegrass festival, and our band plays a bit of bluegrass, but it would be tough to call us a bluegrass band, really. But it is interesting, specifically Earl Scruggs. I mean, Earl Scruggs really created this, played such a huge role in creating this thing. I mean, so like, Earl Scruggs was not like growing up listening to bluegrass because he made it, so I guess like in that spirit, it feels good to be here in that spirit of like, you are what you make and you make what you are, in the same way that he did, in the same way that like he showed up and made a whole new thing, and we've been playing in that pool now for decades, but I'd like to think that he would also appreciate the aesthetic of just like making something new and moving forward.
Yeah, and this festival is doing a great job at kind of holding that thought, and it's a young festival, but the way they're programming it's so interesting, and there's so much music that I'm excited to hear, and just there's none of this sort of traditional versus non-traditional.
We felt very welcomed and appreciated here, and that's been really fun.
It was indeed great fun to see the Faux Paws play and to get to talk with them at the Earl Scruggs Music Festival. No Bad Ideas lands in stores in early May 2025 when they are touring East Tennessee, Western North Carolina, and upstate South Carolina. As we hear their song 15 Below, we close our episode on the Faux Paws, which you can follow on podcast platforms everywhere. You can also check out the written script and transcript of this episode on Substack, where I also post updates and news about the podcast. Please help us keep going and growing by telling a friend and following this podcast. Also, it's incredibly helpful when you take a moment and give it a top rating, and where it's an option, a review. It makes an incredible difference because the more top reviews and ratings we get, the more visible we become to everyone on apps like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and TuneIn, which means that more people just like you connect with artists like the Faux Paws, as well as hundreds more we featured on the podcast. This series is a part of the lineup of both Public Radio WNCW and Osiris Media, with all the Osiris shows available at osirispod.com. You can also hear new episodes on Bluegrass Planet Radio at bluegrassplanetradio.com. Thanks to everyone at the Earl Scruggs Music Festival for helping to make this interview possible, and to Jacqueline Anthony for producing the radio adaptations of this series on Public Radio WNCW, where we worked with Joshua Ming, who wrote and performed our theme songs. I'm your host and producer, Joe Kendrick, and this is Southern Songs and Stories, the music of the South and the artists who make it.
Thank you.